Holy shit, that was the climb that my friend and I recently did down in Oregon, where we climbed the third largest mountain in the state called South Sister. We're looking at about 5k feet of elevation gain over the course of 5.5 miles, so a 12-mile round trip. Now I'm going to use this opportunity to walk you guys through some of the lessons that we learned along the way, but more importantly, what I think are 5 of the best tips to tackle a mountain like this one by hiking. But wait, before we get into that, I do want to talk about fitness for a second. I think it's clear climbing mountains like this one requires some base level of fitness. So hopefully you've hiked before, but more importantly, you're kind of looking for that next step, in which case this is perfect. So let's get into it. And we're going to be climbing for about, I would say,
6.25 miles.
Yeah, depending on how good we are, this can take roughly 3 to 5 hours. Tip number 1, study the terrain. When you're planning on summiting a mountain, it's not going to be just like any other hike that you've done before. So of course, it requires a bit more preparation. Understanding the terrain that you'll be working with will help determine the equipment that'll be necessary for the actual hike. Is it in the woods? Is it all exposed? Is there snow? Is there gravel? Is it a mix of all of these things? How hot or cold is it? For example, let's take a look at the climb that we did. It was mostly exposed, so timing the climb was prudent. There was some snow at the top, but didn't require any special equipment for us to get across it. However, the loose rocks and gravel near the top end of the climb did pose a significant challenge. Having the wrong equipment could make the experience go from grueling to downright unsurmountable. Tip number 2, have the right gear. Starting from the obvious one, hiking shoes. I can't stress this enough. You may think you'll be perfectly fine hiking up a mountain in your running shoes, but trust me, the last thing you want is yet another part of your body telling you to stop. In almost every hike that I've done that was relatively tough with interesting terrain, there's always that one guy with the running shoes on that ended up suffering the most. Not because they weren't fit enough, but because their feet just became a bed for calluses. Don't be that guy. Another hidden equipment that most people miss are gaiters. We dealt with loose rocks and gravel on this hike, and because we didn't have gaiters, they ended up in our shoes. If you've ever had rocks or sand in your hiking shoes in the middle of a hike, you know how annoying and potentially dangerous that can be to your feet. Gaiters will go over your shoes and all the way up to your shin bones, protecting your feet from foreign objects. One final tidbit is utilizing all of the data that you've gathered, hopefully, from tip number 1. Having something like an Apple Watch or a fitness tracker becomes even more important when you're on these more longer, grueling climbs. Knowing that you've got only 1,000 feet of elevation gain left from a total of 5,000 feet of elevation will give you that last bit of motivation that you need to keep moving forward. Otherwise, it may just look like this never-ending climb to the top, where you never see the top, and it's just always in the distance. Tip number 3, let's talk about nutrition. Another seemingly obvious tip is to have balanced nutrition before and during the climb. Ideally, you have whole foods like apples, oranges, and bananas. These foods give you the instant carbs you need while keeping your energy levels fairly constant through the climb. When dealing with long climbs that are going to span more than a few hours, one of the best, most important tips that I can give you is don't wait till you're hungry to refuel. Hunger in this context is your body telling you that it's used up all its fuel. If you continue to climb at this point, your body could start cannibalizing on its fat storages, or worse, your muscles. Just like a car, your body needs fuel to function, or it'll eventually just stop. On top of that, space your nutrition in small-sized meals instead of a single, larger one. You want to maintain constant energy levels instead of these like massive spikes that can throw you off your rhythm. You can also time your rest breaks with refueling, or you can refuel while you climb. Tip number 4, pace your climb. Pacing is everything on long climbs. Be the tortoise, not the hare. I've done this myself, especially trying to look strong in front of my mates. Gone a bit faster than I should have, and well, you know the rest. I'm gonna outline 2 good ways to determine if you're climbing at the right pace. First, could you hold this pace for the next hour without any breaks? If not, you should probably slow down. It's much better to fall into a rhythm while climbing instead of accidentally finding yourself doing high intensity interval training in the middle of a long climb, which puts more stress on your body. This leads us into the second way, which is using a heart rate monitor. you can have something as simple as an Apple Watch or a fitness tracker, or something a bit more dedicated like this. If you're already familiar with heart rate zones, perfect. You'd want to maintain your heart rate right below threshold for those long, steep stretches of the climbs. For those that don't know about heart rate zones, here's a chart. You effectively have a bunch of zones that are determined by your max heart rate. You'd want to pick the zone that you can sustain for an hour long. For fit individuals, this will end up being zone 4, which is 80 to 90% of your max heart rate. The heart rate monitor, with some delay, will give you an indication of exactly how your body is feeling with the amount of effort that you're putting in. Focusing on maintaining a certain heart rate is much easier than guessing what pace you can maintain for an hour long. So if you have one, figure out your heart rate zones and use that data on the climb. Okay, final tip, and I love this one, and it's all up here. No matter how well you're pacing, or how good your equipment is, or how fit you are, if you don't believe you can do it, you won't be able to do it. Mentality plays a huge role in these long endurance efforts. There are quite a few people that have run marathons where their body wasn't ready. They just willed it to happen. Don't be that person. You definitely want your body to be ready, but your body will complain long before you actually need to stop. So you must get comfortable with being uncomfortable for long periods of time. Let's take this climb for example. I was able to get to the top in roughly 3 hours with a few short breaks. There weren't very many moments during these hours where I wasn't breathing heavy or where my quads weren't asking for forgiveness. One of the best ways to get stronger is to put your body through efforts it hasn't experienced before. Working it close to its limit will allow it to adapt and be ready for that next mountain. That's it. These were my 5 tips to hike up your very first mountain. What are yours? Please share them in the comments below. If you found mine useful, please like and subscribe. Thank you.